Okay, now that we have a virtual network up and running, let's talk about doing some security for it. And we're going to find that not here in Network Foundations, but down here in the Network Security group. Now, there are two things. We have firewalls and we have network security groups. And you'll see there's another one in preview here, the Network Security Perimeter. And if we wait, it'll give us a description. Okay. What we're going to look at right now is the network security groups. Now, this basically, it provides basic firewall filtering, but it does so primarily at levels 3 and 4 of the OSI model, so IP address and port number. The firewalls will actually go a little bit deeper. They'll function at levels 4 and level 7, so the transport layer and the application layer. So we're going to go with a basic one. Now, I will also tell you that some of these things we've been creating, so virtual networks, things like that, if you jump in and create like a virtual machine first, it will create a bunch of these things for you automatically if you don't associate it with any existing resource. So that's just going to be something to be aware of when you create some of your resources. You might see other things popping up alongside them. Okay, with that in mind, let's get to our network security groups, and we'll talk about why I mentioned that here in a minute. So I'm going to click on network security groups, and I'm going to create a new network security group. And this is going to be in my demonstrations, and I'm going to call this demo projects. Let's just do NSG for network security group. And next is tags. Notice it's not really asking me for anything. Review, create. Okay, well, that was easy. And that's it. We have a network security group. Now, obviously, this is going to be a very limited network security group, so we're going to want to customize this. So let's click on Go to Resource. And here is my network security group. Now, I have a bunch of inbound and outbound security rules already predefined. So let's talk about priorities. Notice these things have massive priorities. 65,000. Okay. When you are doing something, when you are creating or processing things through network security rules, the lower number wins. So if I have something like right here, I have a deny all inbound traffic. But if I create another rule, let's say it's 60 with a priority of 64,000 that says allow this particular type of inbound traffic, that will take precedence over this. So if I'm allowing, let's say, HTTPN, then I can allow that. But if it doesn't match that, then that rule doesn't take effect. This one does. So these are those kind of default rules, and they're really high up so that we can put other things underneath them. And these just kind of become that baseline, and then we'll customize on top of it. Okay. Now, notice here. So this is our overview. Let's take a look at our settings. Our inbound security rules, that's traffic coming in to whatever this is protecting. You know what? Let's back up a little bit because there's something else I want to hit before that. And that is network secure, or NSGs, network security groups, can be associated with subnets, or they can be associated with interfaces. And this is why I wanted to point this out, because when you create something like a virtual machine, if you do not associate it with an existing interface, it will create its own. And when it creates its own network security group. So every single interface can and probably should have its own network security group. Now, I can also associate network security groups with subnets. And in that case, when something comes into the subnet, that network security, or out of a subnet, that network security group will process it, just like having a router on a physical network that's on-prem. When traffic comes into or out of that router, it will have to pass through the router firewall rules if you have them enabled. That's what this does. So I'm going to go ahead and associate this, knowing that I can associate it with a network interface, but knowing that that's going to happen automatically, I'm going to go ahead and assign this to my subnet. So I'm going to associate with the virtual network, and I'm going to set the virtual network that I want and then the subnet. Now, I only have one subnet for my demo virtual network, which is great. So I'm going to hit OK, and that is now going to associate this network security group with the subnet. So any traffic coming into or out of this network security group or this subnet now has to pass through this network security group. Okay, now with that in mind, let's come back to inbound and outbound rules. So I'm going to go to my inbound security rules, and here they are. And again, these are the default ones. I can delete them or whatever. By the way, just like any other firewall, if we do not have at least one allow, all traffic will be denied. So I'm going to click an add, and I can set my source. So I can set it based on any specified IP address, specify the source address or CIDR range, my IP address. So if I want something specific to me, I can do it, the source, something from a service tag. So internet, virtual network, and then any one of these services. So this keeps me from having to specify 0.0.0.0, the quad zero route for the internet or something like that. I can use some of these tags that'll make my life a little bit easier. And then application security group, which I have no application security groups to find now. So I'm going to set, actually I'm going to do this. So this is going to be an inbound security rule. So I'm going to say we're going to do this from the service tag. And, oh, there it was. I just missed it, internet. And then I can specify specific ports. So I want to allow specifically port 80 and port 443, which is going to be HTTP and HTTPS. And then for my destination, I can do any, so that'll allow it to anything in my subnet, or I can set specific IP addresses, application security groups, or service tags. So very similar, right? I'm going to set this to, and then I can set a specific IP address. And then I can do it either as a CIDR range or as a individual address. So I'm going to do, let me delete, see if I can get my keyboard working here. There we go. All right. Let's do 172.16.0.15/24. Okay, and then, oh, that's /24, /32. I went in, it's set the individual host. /24 identify the whole network, and that obviously confused it. And then I can set the service if I want a particular service to be running HTTP. So these are going to be source port ranges. The destination port ranges are what I actually want to be port 80 and port 443. The source port, I don't always know what that's going to be. So I'm going to asterisk that. And again, little hints up here tell you provide an asterisk to allow traffic on any port. So this is where it's coming from on the internet on any port destined for this IP address, which by the way I shouldn't be able to find, so this is a ridiculous rule. And then the service that I want, HTTP, HTTPS. And then do I want to allow or deny, set my priority, and then set the name and the description. Now I'm not actually going to add this because I have nothing there. So I don't want to add the rule. Actually, you know what? Let me add it and then delete it. So I'm going to click add, and this will create our rule for our network security group. There we see priority 100. This takes highest priority of anything that we have now. Now, I actually don't have an HTTP server there, and this would be the destination IP address anyway if it's coming from the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that rule, and for that I just click my delete right here. Now, I do want you to notice, and I misspoke earlier when I said you can delete these rules, you actually can't. Notice that's grayed out, so those are always going to be your default rules. You can override them with another rule, but they can't be deleted. Okay, there we go. We have created a network security group. We've associated it with a subnet, and then we have created and then deleted an inbound security rule. Okay. Hopefully that gives you a beginning idea of how to work with network security groups in Azure.